you would know Giles was a storied program and still is. Jeremy Haymore takes us back to the late 70s, early 80s and tells us about the Giles Spartans program at the time coached by the legend Steve Ragsdale. I asked Jeremy Haymore what was the purpose behind writing this book. Let's get a few things out of the way. You didn't go to Giles. Why write this book?
I didn't go to Giles, but I do have a connection to Giles County. So, as growing up, as a young kid, my dad went to Narrows. So there's a connection there, and my grandparents lived there as I was little, and we'd go up and visit them, and we would, this is me at 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, and we'd go up to Narrows and pass Ragsdale Field up there, and my dad would say, all right, that's where I played, and I'd notice the big Homer Ragsdale Field painted, and he'd tell me about this single wing that he ran, and it didn't mean anything then, but it would just seem like a magical kind of thing, you can see the big stadium right there from the road, not big, but you can, it's the bleachers there, the concrete bleachers to a 6-year-old look big,
Right.
But so there was a connection to Giles County there, and we would always go up, and I didn't know anything about Giles or Steve Ragsdale or any of that, but that was kind of just in the back of my mind as roots, that kind of later came to fruition would be. So, as I'm getting a little bit older, even playing in high school, went to Stanton River, played at Stanton River, graduated in 97, but I always, when I would watch highlights, like on Friday Football Extra or wherever, then I would see this team Giles, that they were always on, and they would, they'd be running the buck lateral, and their plays, it's noticeable. You can know, like, this is something unique compared to what everybody else was doing. So I was like, that's pretty cool. And then I kind of put 2 and 2 together there, that this was what my dad had told me about when I was younger. And so I always kind of followed them and was like, wanted them to do well. And after that, once I went into college and decided I wanted to teach and coach and everything, got my first teaching job, I started to kind of take an interest in studying Giles a little bit more, just on the kind of in my own time or whatever, and didn't really know that much about the single wing, or even where you could even get any resources on the single wing, but I would go and watch Giles, if we didn't make the playoffs or something, I'd go up and watch them and their games, or eventually I bought a video camera and would just tape their game, go sit in the stands and tape the game just for me to watch, because it was a little bit harder to get films then than it is now, but that was kind of, my interest was growing. I was starting to, try to find some material on it. And then I got an opportunity to sit down with Steve Ragsdale down at the Virginia High School Coaches Association Clinic in Hampton in 2007, and talked to him about the offense. And I was at Appomattox at the time. We ended up running it 2007, had success with it. Little did I know that was going to be his last year at Giles. He retired after that season. But, I'd had a taste for it now of coaching it, watching it, roots going back to my dad, that whole kind of coming together. Then the other aspect is I was an English teacher, so, always kind of studying storytelling and all that kind of thing. And so about 2010, I kind of just got this kind of itched for a project. Well, I didn't have the clout to be writing a X's and O book on the single wing, but I thought, well, what's a story that maybe would be interesting? So I thought, and I'd remembered back that my roommate early on when I started teaching, back when I was single and just getting out of college, was Neil Mustard, who's the athletic director of Stanton River now, and he had told me about, he went to Giles, played for Coach Ragsdale, graduated a year before, in 96, year before I did, and he told me about playing, and he was a sophomore on the 1993 team, won the state championship, and he told me this story about the bandana, that this really just rallying cry emblem. and he told me a little bit of how it got started, or just the folklore of how it got started with Leon King and the rival Narrows, and then he told me about their 1980 season, which was just their magical run, and just how everything really fit together in a narrative standpoint. What I mean by that is, like, we often joke, me and him would talk about how, movies like Remember the Titans, in order to make them a little more cinematic, they had to make the game a little closer than it was. You make it down to the last play where really the championship game was a blowout, that type. This is actually how it happened. This is, and it really, so many things in that season kind of fall into, a storybook kind of deal. I mean, to steal Coach Ragsdale's words himself, when I was talking to him, he said it really was like a storybook deal. And, so as I'm thinking about this project, I'm like, I think that's a really good story. I mean, the first time I heard it, I knew it was special. And so I contacted Jeff Williams at Giles, and I asked him if anybody had done anything like that. He said no. He thought it was a great idea. Gave me Coach Ragsdale's number and some other contacts. And I talked to Coach Ragsdale. Went up there and met with him one day for 6 or 7 hours. He went through his memories of the games and various things. And from there, it kind of went on. The way it worked was Jeff had a few phone numbers. Well, the people, when I talked to them, they had a few other phone numbers, and it just kind of branched out, until I'd interviewed between 2010 and 2011, I'd interviewed 34 members of the Giles team, and then also 15 of the players and coaches from Parkview, and branched out. Then I was like, going on into the teams that they played, and so I was like, I interviewed the coaches, Dave Christ, Norm Lynchburg, Bill Pattison. He was still living then. He passed away since then. Phil Robbins, Larry Bradley, just a host of like coaches who, shoot, a bunch of them have stadiums or fields names after them now, and they were getting started or really starting to break through in that time frame. And so I got to talk to them, and really what took a long time, from the time I decided to do it was once I had interviewed Coach Ragsdale, I could see very quickly that there was a connection between him and his dad, with not only learning the offense, but just things that happened in his career that he had pulled from his dad's stories and those types of things. And so I was like, that's one of the kind of angles I want to take with the book, because I want to draw those parallels and really show that father-son relationship. So I said, in order to do that, I really need to research his dad's career. So now you're talking about 1930 through 1962. And there was some information that had been researched previously, but I mean, there were still gaps in there, and really to do a thorough job, I needed to research all that. And so that took a while. Over that two-year window of research, it kind of ballooned into this huge, there was a lot of research. Of course, some of that was just me being obsessive, wanting to make sure I left no stone unturned. I'd research even the newspapers from wherever they played, even going back to his dad's career, and made sure I did 150 interviews, did research, and I think I counted them up once. It was like 100 newspapers. Now, I didn't end up using all those, but little rabbit holes led me to newspapers all over the country, for little tidbits and stuff, and now, it's like I was telling somebody recently, the Roanoke Times, for example, now you can get a membership, and that's all searchable. You can just, from your home, you could sit there and I could type in Harry Ragsdale and bring up every article that ever mentioned his name. But in 2010, 2011, that wasn't quite there yet. So I had spent a lot of time at the Roanoke City Public Library and going through microfilm. I mean, it was just, it was one of the things where I was like, I enjoyed the process, but, I knew it was going to be a while. So moving on from there, I got, real heavy into coaching with the 2015, 16, 17. Our teams at Stanton River were really good, made a couple runs to the state finals and the state semifinals, running the single wing, and so I didn't get to do as much with it then, with When I started, I had no children, and within a few years, I had 3. Writing slowed a little bit. Well, along comes COVID, a little bit more time, and back into it. Really got back into it hard, and then ended up finishing it last May. So it was about a year-long process from finishing to publishing. It was editing, and it was just it's a long process of different things throughout the year to get everything ready for publication. But yeah, I wrote it because I had that roots in Southwest Virginia with my dad, but also just a discovered love of the Single Wing, of Giles's program and everything that they had done, and combining that with an English background, all those things kind of just a perfect storm that culminated in this story.
Final thing, talk about A, how people can buy the book, B, how much the book is, and C, I know you have a book signing coming up too.
It's available online, basically at all major retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Walmart. You can, through the website, the local bookstores, basically online, you can buy it anywhere. And the hardcover is $29.95, and the paperback is $19.95. And there will be an ebook version that'll be $9.99, but can't pre-order that. It'll be available once the book actually launches. The launch day is July 29th. That'll be the publication date. That same day, I'm going to be having a book launch signing event at Givens Books on Lakeside Drive. So from 4:30 to 6:30. So I thought this would be a good time slot because it's right before fall sports get ready to get kicked off, and it's kind of there's usually a couple weeks there in July where it's a little dead. There's not really many sports going on, so I'm hoping that maybe this will be, we can get people there before everything starts going for fall sports. So the 29th, 4:30 to 6:30 at Givens Books. Come on out, and we'll have copies of the book, and we can talk, meet and greet, that type of thing.
Appreciate the time, and good luck with it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.